After Spyro 2 came Spyro, Year of the Dragon. Insomniac knew that it had to be released on the year 2000 for two reasons. One, a new generation of consoles were coming fast and waiting any longer would have seriously jeopardized the game's success. And two, it would be the Chinese Year of the Dragon. And come on, that's just an awesome coincidental opportunity you just can't let slip by. I also think that the idea leaked into the story and theming of this game as well, because Spyro is going on an adventure to the other side of the world. Just like how it's believed that China is on the opposite side of North America, even though that's not true at all. It's actually South America, and that's a kinda... Well, anyways. In this game, an army of Rhinox, led by this mysterious robed figure, tunneled to the Dragon Realms to steal all the dragon eggs, which seem to have multiplied in size since Spyro 1. Are they supposed to do that? Is that how it works? Why are you guys just sleeping around outside and have all these delicate eggs just scattered about? Like, don't y'all have houses or castles or caves or... Get her! Well, they nabbed all the eggs and took them back to their homeworld, the Forgotten Worlds, the dragon's original homeworld. Since they're the only ones that can fit through these quick travel holes, Spyro and Hunter, plus Sparks and Zoe, venture off to get all the eggs back, which, yes, is your next main collectible. Look at them hash the moment they come into your possession. Turns out this land is under the seemingly unquestioned authority of the Sorceress, who is ordering her apprentice, the secretly sweethearted Bianca, to collect and protect all of the eggs in order to bring magic back to the worlds from them existing, i.e. not very Gucci money in my honest opinion. So, here we go again, going from world to world, level to level, getting gems, doing challenges, doing speedways, doing bosses, and getting that quintessential collectathon main collectible, Dim Dragon's eggs.
Jason! Now come here. Why do you disappoint me? Second by second, you waste my time.
Yeah, it's funny. I was going to say how the main objective feels like it went back to how Spyro 1 worked, but the dragon eggs feel more like the orbs than I initially realized. They are mainly just used to open deactivated portals, and your main way of progressing is getting to the end of a level so that an inhabitant can help construct a vehicle to get you to the next world. Kinda like how the Spyro 2 talismans worked. Yeah, this game is basically Spyro 2, but more, while simultaneously trying not to be like Spyro 2, if that makes sense. The gameplay is the best it has ever been. It plays just like the last one did, maybe even a little tighter, except with one big addition that I can't believe I underutilized in the past. L1 and R1 being centering camera buttons. Now, I said you could use the look as a de facto center camera button, but this works so much better. Now that's an adequate reason to axe the rolls. Another cool thing is that you start off with all the learned move from the previous games. Now, I want to say that it completely builds on Spyro 2 and introduces new things that enhances the Spyro formula and gameplay, but honestly, I think that's where this game falls flat. You'll notice this as soon as you step through the first portal. Aw, no level cutscenes.
Oh my.
Nah, did I really forget to mention those? Yeah, in Spyro 2, since going through the portals were no longer a seamless transition, they gave every level a couple of cutscenes for when you enter and leave. Yoink. Bruh. They're short, but they're funny and charming. Like being there to show you what's going down and to entertain you with some slapstick that's both simple and brutal. Like, Jeez, he just cold-blooded murdered that other guy. No remorse. Some of them are really great. I recommend just pulling up a compilation of all of them and just watching them all back to back. Well, they ain't in this game, and that distills onto me the big sad. I'm guessing it was to make room for the story cutscenes, of which there are way more frequent because this game is surprisingly story driven. Heck, I think this game's best quality is its story, because it's solid for what it is. It mainly focuses on the character arc of Bianca, the sorceress's apprentice, who starts off really hostile, but becomes more reluctant the more she learns about the true nature of her master's plot. Also, she and Hunter start bonding. Like bonding. And thankfully, it's not out of left field.
We should help her.
You're kidding, right? She nearly toasted you.
Yeah, but she was aiming at you.
Say, is it just me? Or is she kind of cute when she's angry?
Besides the story, if there's one thing that this game tries its absolute hardest to expand upon from the previous game, it's the challenges, because they get insane. Most of the challenges in Spyro 2 tested your abilities controlling Spyro, and you having to adapt to a new gameplay style or a minigame was the exception. Well, that's been turned on its head this time around, for the name of this game is Variety.
The variety of gameplay in Spyro Year of the Dragon is mind-boggling.
Now, variety in a game can be a really good thing, breaking up any monotony and testing your skills in exciting new ways. You just gotta make sure to keep everything fleshed out and not to lose focus. This game goes absolutely overboard with it. It got you skateboarding, gunboating, dogfighting, mole whacking, submarining, side-scrolling, strafe shooting, sliding, and just so much more. Literally variety for the sake of variety. That approach typically falls flat on its face because, you know, the logistics of quantity over quality. To be honest with you, Spyro 3 does a surprisingly fine job balancing all of these things, but predictably, although there are some really good ones, there are a number of ones that just suck. But I'll get into my favorite and least favorite challenges in a moment. Yeah, there are some good ones, and thankfully, they don't always one and done these ideas. They'll usually show up twice, once to introduce it and another to flesh it out. So that's good game design there. But let me tell you what really shakes up this game from the rest. The cornerstone, the faces of the gameplay variety of this title tries to boast are undoubtedly the secondary characters you can play as. Story-wise, I think they were a handful of freedom fighters pushing back against the sorceress and her ever-growing control. But, unfortunately, all got captured. Fortunately, they are under guard by our old friend Moneybags. Yeah, he'll give them to you if you pay him more than what she's offering. And once you release them, they beat him up for his greed.
No, hold on. One more, perhaps?
At least.
These guys are a majorly focused on asset of this game, so I guess I could dedicate a paragraph to each of them. First character you free is Sheila, the predictably Australian kangaroo, who unpredictably resides in the Alps.
Now, how many times have I told you not to tease that moose?
It was Billy's idea. Yeah.
You stupid.
Besides most of the dragons you have to rescue in the first game, she's the only character with a major redesign in Reignited that I fully approve of. Mostly because she just started out as a bland, boring kangaroo. I mean, come on, she has no distinguishing features. Her gameplay, I'm mixed on. It's fine, but could have been a lot better. She feels weirdly both pretty fast and too slow. I think it's the jumping not having enough horizontal movement. It's weird. She moves on the ground pretty fast, but unlike Spyro, her momentum doesn't carry over to her jumps, which is very detrimental since it's a major aspect of her playstyle, because, you know, she's a kangaroo, jumping's what they do. She can kick, jump, stomp, double jump, air hop, and do a bounding jump. Oh, excuse me again. Double jump. I am not calling it that. I'm just going to call them double jump and landing jump respectively. That landing jump you activate by jumping as soon as you hit the ground, and it sends you skyrocketing. Too bad it's not as satisfying as it could be, because your movement forward is just barely anything at all. It feels like I can barely get over these edges. Maybe if you went twice as far, I think it would be fine. Hey, I just came up with an idea. You know what they should have done? They should have had it where she keeps the sideways momentum in the jumps, including the landing one, so that you could go rocketing far off. Yeah, it'll be like Mario's triple jump, but like on steroids. I mean, they would be able to make some cool levels for her if they did that. The second one is Sergeant James Byrd, 90068, a British-sounding World War II militaristic flying penguin with many rocket launchers mounted to his shoulders.
These are the latest military hardware. DBX-9 rocket launchers, state-of-the-art.
British?
Stupid, out there, and fun as heck to play. Probably the best secondary character out of a bunch. Though could still use improvements. He's wonky to maneuver, but it's theoretically possible to get used to him, and definitely possible to have fun doing it. Cause come on, lock on rockets. He has a pathetic waddle, but pressing jump sends him airborne, and keep pressing it to keep him flapping, or just hold it down if you're lame. He can fire homing rockets, though you'll still need to aim semi-good, and you can pick stuff up with his feet, look downwards, and then drop the stuff on things. Preferably your fleshy opposition. Next up is Bentley V Yeti. Like Sheila, also kind of a lame design, but he's a Yeti, and he has this cool transparent club made out of ice. Now, you would think he'll be one of those big and dull types, wouldn't you? But in actuality, to undercut your presuppositions expectantly acquired through prevalent innocuous depictions and trite cliche of such like agnan archetypes, the verisimilitude of the circumstance is that this fabricated personage exultantly brandishes a relatively unfathomable and commodious vernacular, an expansive circumlocution of a superfluous vocabulary constituting bounteous and pragmatically superannuated terminology of semblance to those word trivia unsolicitedly commissions to my established electrical receiving address, endeavoring in their honorific objective of informing my person and the unwitting masses multitudinous denotations of abstruse language, deservedly bearing justifiably inordinate abatement betwixt communicative convention amongst contemporary civilities, cause ain't no one wanna deal with big confusing dead words only used by pretentious know-it-alls and English scholars with nothing better to do.
Ah, the first rejuvenating breath of freedom. With the humility of a wounded sparrow, I genuflect to my noble deliverer.
It was no big deal, dude.
Point is, he got brains, bronze, and a cockney-sounding little brother. He's purposefully slow, but can hit hard. But since you can already one-shot nearly everything in this game with every other character, this essentially means you can break containers and smash through obstacles that the others would not be able to bypass if they ever came across them. His other ability is that he can do this club spin to reflect some projectiles, and yeah, despite his apparent intellect, he's stupidly basic and uninteresting.
Look at this dude.
And lastly, you mistakenly free Agent 9, a coked up lab monkey carelessly waving around a loaded gun.
Check this out.
Wish I could stay, but my homeworld's been overrun by Rhinox since I've been captured. If you happen to see the sorceress, tell her I'll be giving her dancing lessons real soon, know what I mean?
I think he's supposed to be an experiment of the professor and or part of some secret task force of Avalar. In either case, he wants to play like a third-person shooter so bad, but the execution is just so bad. Some people swear that this was a guy's prototype of Insomniac's upcoming game, Ratchet & Clank, and, well, I wouldn't be surprised, for it feels kinda like that, but worse in literally every way. You both move and aim with a left analog stick. Press circle to shoot and press square to throw grenades if you pick them up. Triangle will make you enter this sniping mode, where you can fully look around and zoom into your targets. You can also use L1 and R1 to strafe, which is clunky, but definitely helpful. Oh, and to add insult to fatal injury, the vertical aiming is inverted. Grand. Overall, this plays downright terrible, but it's possible to get somewhat adjusted to it. I remember coming to like it as a dumb kid, but I also remember finding it like nearly unplayable on a later playthrough. Now, with my latest playthrough, I'm kind of in the middle of those two extremes, but I still overall dislike it. Thankfully, Reignited did Agent 9 right with the new controls, with the right stick as camera and R2 being able to shoot. Agent 9 becomes really fun to use and actually feels like Ratchet & Clank, but it makes me sad when I remember that they only used this kind of gameplay style for him like once for his home world, or not his home world, but for like his level. His other 3 instances are like this bird's eye arena gauntlet, this Doom-like first-person shooter section, which is, let me get sidetracked real quick, which is one of the worst challenges in the game because it controls like complete crap. No, seriously. This was a console FPS before people realized they should be using both sticks to move and aim. Games like these were notoriously terrible, and there are like 2 good ones, maybe 3, I think. Pro tip, look up in one of the first 2 rooms, and you'll find this full auto power up, which should have been a normal pickup they should have given to you at the middle point of a level when you had to backtrack and fight through the rooms all over again backwards. Like, why was that not there? This is a slog and it plays terrible. But as said, it plays a lot better in Reignited. Oh yeah, and lastly, the only other instance where you play as him is in this rail shooter mission, which is cool, but you're expected to travel through it normally to get the leftover gems. Can we get more enemies to make it feel fun to have more normal Agent 9 gameplay, I guess? Maybe they were going for a ghost town atmosphere, but you still would have gotten that feeling on the return trip. Yeah, Agent 9, a lot of missed potential. In my honest opinion, if they wanted to focus on variety in the gameplay and also being completely different to the first 2 Spyro games, they probably should have focused more on these characters rather than throwing in so many random challenges that require a vast amount of operations that all had to be programmed in. You know what they could have done? You know what they should have done? I think instead of doing all these random challenges and all that, and different controls just for the sake of variety, what they should have done was, instead of just having a few dedicated levels and challenges for each of these dedicated characters, they should have made nearly every single stage in this game be playable as Spyro and one other different character. Think about it. Maybe one level could have you go through as Spyro, but there's a bunch of ledges above you that you can't reach. But once you reach the end of a level, you can go back or loop around as Sheila and platform on those higher platforms and stuff like that. Maybe even have a challenge up there. See what I mean? Turns out they actually tried this concept once in one level, Enchanted Towers, a level that I think is one of the best designed in the game. I'll get to my favorite levels in a bit. But yeah, you can play through the level as Spyro, but you'll notice all this stuff out of reach, like on balloons and the top of these towers. Well yeah, you're supposed to go back through with Sergeant Bird, looking for golden bones and... Oh no, not again! And treasure in the secret rooms at the top of the titular towers. But yeah, I remember one playthrough, I got confused at this part and I had no idea. I completely forgot you actually played as Sergeant Bird in this one. And ever since then, I kind of have a little bit of a grudge against Enchanted Towers, but it's okay. I'm not really a fan of all the enemies you have to spit rocks at. That just drags.
I have a couple of favorite levels in the game. The one of them would be Enchanted Towers. It's one of the ones where you play as Sergeant Bird, and so you're able to get some elevation and just let loose with the rockets and just shooting down balloons and flying creatures. So I found that pushing the artistic envelope, pushing the engine, and allowing us to do something really gorgeous.
But yeah, sadly, this only happens once, and I wish it happened at least once with every character, but if I had it my way, I would have designed the whole game around this concept, but what can you do? Instead, we just got a bunch of phoned-in garbage, like so much stuff, like, well, I just want to play as Spyro. What is this? What is this? What is that? You want to know how many vehicles, characters, and, well, different play styles this game has you shifting through? 21. 31 if you were to include minor changes like Spyro swimming or flying or the hover tank that can lob shots unlike the other one that can't. Like, well, geez, why are there so many? Why can't we just focus on the core gameplay and expanding that like any normal sequel? I'll tell you why. Insomniac didn't want to make Spyro anymore. They admitted they didn't want to make Spyro anymore. They believe he already peaked.
But we wanted to know if there would be a fourth Spyro game from the Insomniac team.
Spyro was originally intended as a trilogy, and that was our goal to make the final chapter the most exciting. And I think we've really done that.
Here's an infamous quote from good old Teddy Price saying why they stopped developing Spyro games. Apparently, the reason is cause Spyro ain't got no hands to wield stuff with, which, guessing from Insomniac's games at the time, got mass misremembered into, we stopped making Spyro cause he can't hold guns, which got me like, can't use a gun? Is that really your big problem, that he doesn't have opposable thumbs to wield stuff with? You really think he needs a gun? Honestly, that's shorthand for them thinking that they have reached the peak of what they can do with Spyro's core concept, which I argue is completely untrue. You could have explored him having more dragon-related powers, like maybe after he grows some more, he could give him more movement options, using magic, the ability to fly all the time. Heck, remember Nasty's Loot, the level with the mechanic where you can fly but only up to a point of your currently highest jump? You can make a whole game's worth of level designed around that dynamic. Also, perhaps the most obvious and potential granting idea, Spyro being able to breathe different breaths. Yes, if there's one thing the post-Insomniac sequels did right, it was trying to explore this mechanic. Just like having 2 characters per level, they toyed with this ingenious idea only once in one level, Frozen Altars. Great level, one of my favorites, where you can only breathe a freezing ice breath that they pull some really smart things with, but it's only used for that level only. It's given to you by the Snow Fairy, which I always forget about. Like, I just assume Spyro has it because it's so cold or something, which, like, if they didn't have the fairy, people would probably be asking, like, why doesn't Spyro have the ice breath in the other snow level? Turns out the reason why this game is a messy mishmash of ideas is, well, personal theory. I don't think I had any foresight on what to do with Spyro, especially for a third outing. Like, for the whole trilogy, I think they just, like, for the most part, have just been making stuff up as they went along.
Coming up with the enemies for all these levels generally consisted of Ellen, our animator, just making something. Just making something funny.
That saves you a lot of time debating and talking about concept art. You just like make some stuff.
Everybody here spends a lot of time participating in the game design. There isn't one person that says, hey, I'm dictating what's going to make this game great. Everybody puts in their 2 cents, and as a result, we get games that are much more varied, much deeper, and a lot more.
Some of the later enemies in Spyro 3, when we were in the third Spyro, when we were starting to really run out of the standards, were a little bit weird.
Now, this could have ended in complete disaster, especially with a tight single-year deadline. But they mostly knew what they were doing by this point, and not to mention, the Spyro 2 formula of themey one-off levels and gameplay modifying challenges would be a good haven of throwing ideas at the wall to see what sticks. I won't lie, some of the theming of the levels is actually really cool, and they do make great use of ideas while also combining them with, what I argue, better overall level design than most of Spyro 2's levels. Keyword most, because some of Spyro 2 levels are extremely good, and some of Spyro 3 levels are definitely not. But hey, time to do this again! Favorites and least favorites, yay! My favorite levels include Sunny Villa, great introduction. Seashell Shores is just a better Sunny Shores. Enchanted Towers and Frozen Altars, already talked about those. Spooky Swamps, really interesting. I really like the level design, and the weird haikus make it really charming. Bamboo Terrace is definitely up there. I love the theming, and it's just a good level overall. I also really appreciate Charmed Ridges and Crystal Island's more Spyro 1-esque aesthetics. Fireworks Factory, while home to two of the worst challenges in the game, it's still an awesome, exhilarating level.
Fireworks Factory is easily my favorite level because we've got a little Matrix scene going on in there where the camera revolves around stop motion photography.
They're back. Dino Mines might be my favorite. The theming is stupid, but it's great. It's like a Western, but there are dinosaurs with guns. These guys are going to rock your world if you ain't quick. If only we still had the roll. Cold Cavalry M1873 single action army revolvers. I assume that's what they are since they're considered the handgun that won the West. I just noticed that in every level set up to be the last level before the final boss, all have enemies armed with guns. Conversely, I've also noticed that in every first level of enemies, the small ones are always harmless and just cower. I remember one time as a kid just standing in front of this dude for like minutes on end, just waiting for him to finally collect the courage to hit me with his pointy pickaxe he got there. Like, do it. Just do it. Now, least favorites. Enchanted Towers, Haunted Tomb, Molted Crater. I'm kind of mixed on them, but I still think they're good as levels. The secondary character levels are all kind of meh. Agent 9 being like terrible since he doesn't control good, and the entire level just feels like a stop and talk. No, it is a stop and talk tutorial for a game you're not going to be playing. You know, despite not liking this game's, and therefore the level's, core general structure as much now, I still think every level here is thoroughly solid. Like, not a single bad one. Though I bet some would argue Fireworks Factory and Haunted Tomb sucks, but that former one especially when factoring in the challenges. Haunted Tomb, I think it's alright. I think it's fun. I think people don't like it because it's the most forgettable level and also all the environmental hazards that can get annoying. Wait a minute, hold up. You want to know which levels I think are actually bad? Like badly designed and all that? Almost forgot to talk about them again. The flying levels. They are so mind-numbingly linear this time around. Like, there are no more optimal deviations like there used to be. There is no more freedom of choice. I only remember like 2 or 3 instances where it was possible, let alone faster, to go off the intended path and go at an obstacle line like backwards or something, and like the faint hope that you're got some agency. Now here's something a little interesting. Sparks now talks to you here, because he can now, I guess. If you listen carefully, you can tell that he's actually making noises for each word and syllable instead of just doing some random. Also, each speedway now has a race. They're okay, but I don't like them. They're terrible, and I hate playing through them over and over again. Like they're not hard as long as you take every shortcut and use as many of the boost and rocket stars as you can, but they just drag. Like, uh-oh, I wasn't paying attention and didn't shoot enough mouth rockets, and now I'm in third on the final lap. Guess I better restart and spend 5 more minutes on this doing the same thing and Like Spyro 2, you can find Hunter hidden every speedway, and he usually has a mission involving space sheep, because that's the theme. Hey Spyro! Respect the Second Amendment. Stay strapped or get clapped, G. Those challenges are pretty alright. It kind of makes up for the lackluster flying in the flying levels, but yeah. Bam! Last one done. Hopefully, I'll never have to fly anything inverted ever again. Okay, let's do favorites and least favorites with this game's challenges. Unlike in Spyro 2, you don't get these missions by coming across a random NPC, but by going through one of these challenge portals. I'm guessing to help differentiate the area from the rest of the level, or keep it separate, or probably something to do with the memory space, or some other technical or design reason, but yeah. With the large magnitude of new ideas and gameplay styles, they are more hit and miss this time around than it was in Spyro 2. Like last time, I want to talk about the ones I didn't like first. There are a lot more duds in this game, and they hit harder. That tank destruction derby thing, I want to say that I like it. I mean, it just sounds awesome, but it's stupidly cutthroat and unfair. The hover tank is hard to control, and the enemies all hide behind these freaking pots and seem to always hit you first. Like, I found myself just cheesing them by hitting their little exposed sides if you angle yourself just right. These little craps in Spooky Swamp are basically the Alchemist mission all over again, but times 2. And do I really need to say anything more than that? Ow! You deserve all the pain you're going to get, you little waster of my limited time on this earth. Redid this challenge so much, the rocks stopped spawning. Yeah, fun fact, in some sections, this game has dynamic difficulty. I'm guessing it's dependent on your life count and or how many times you're failing missions and how much you've been collecting, but yeah, I think I've been playing this game on hard. Let's see, I already talked about the Doom challenge, but the other Fireworks Factory challenge? No, not that one. That one's pretty good. No, this mini boss battle with the twin dragons just suck. You have to be so precise with your shots, and they slowly regenerate. Don't even try to switch your focus to the other one when it gets in your way. Also, you can't just stand on the ground and shoot in one spot because you'll get shot right back. Skateboarding was a poster pleaser, and actually I'm kind of mixed on it to say the least. I wonder why they would feel the need to put Spyro on us. Hey, there's a remake out now. Yeah, looks like Insomniac took some outside inspiration for some of their challenges and characters. I don't blame them though. I mean, extreme sports definitely popped in the 90s, and also ain't nothing wrong with a little reference or influence. The problem with the skateboarding in this game is, well, the skateboarding in this game, it's not that fun. It is very limited in scope. Like, if you go off a half or quarter pipe, like, you can only turn left or right. And if you go off the ramp, well, you can basically only flip and roll. Trying to do anything else will more likely than not even register as a trick, and you will most likely wipe out. The first skate park and its challenges just... I hated it. I did not like this. I mean, no. But the second skate part was surprisingly good and fun to skate through. Like, even to the point where I was actively trying to grind the highest score I could muster. Like, I don't know what it is about this skate part here in Enchanted Towers. I mean, it's fun. Sadly, these two maps are all you get with the skateboarding. Because Ted Price then had a brain blast and decided, rocket boards. Now this is a fast and fun challenge. The rocket board races are definitely my favorite. They do kind of drag like the speedway races, but they're actually fun and fast-paced and feels like it gives you more agency.
You might be able to beat me at skateboarding, but I still get all the chicks.
What they at though? I mean, just look at it. It looks fun to play, it is fun to play, and it's pretty challenging too. Another one I'm mixed on is Bentley Boxing. Ooh boy, this is a notorious one. You 1v1 that Spyro 2 Yeti in a boxing match, and it's surprisingly technical, and the controls also contort your hands with unfamiliarity. You have a quick high jab, a slower, riskier, but harder hitting haymaker, and a low gut punch. You automatically guard low, but you can raise your hands for the jab and haymaker, but then you are exposed to the low blow. As said, surprisingly technical, and, like a good fighting game, plays out like a rapid-paced game of rock, paper, scissors. Too bad the enemy AI is a psychic and is extremely aggravating to work with, reacting exactly when you throw out a punch. You can try to play footsies with him, slightly going into his reach to bait out an attack that you can go back in and counter, but the movement is not one-to-one. It's like incremental, and I hate that. You can try to cheese him with repeated jabs and pray to your gut punch hits when he puts his hands up and not immediately smack you in the face. And heaven forbid you get backed into a corner because you might as well reset. Wait, how did I not know this? How did I forget this? You can actually walk up and down. This is in full 3D. Now I feel like an idiot. Now you can do the more reliable jab and sidestep cheese. Honestly, once you get used to it and figure out some strats, it actually gets a little fun. If you don't want to deal with the mess though, you can just outright cheat by plugging in a second controller, because that makes it 2-player. Yes, this is the only instance of multiplayer in all of these games, and it's with this garbage. I haven't tried it myself, but it probably plays better with a competent friend who's willing to put up with all these janky controls. But yeah, while it's really novel, it ain't no esport.
He's right near the edge. Oh my god! Destruction! That was emphatic. That was amazing.
Let's talk about the ones I like now. The first Hunter mission has you in this fighter jet and you can't see anything because of a crap camera placement and you die in one hit, but it's just dummy fun to go around blowing everything up. I think the best Hunter mission is the rail shooter one, and I kind of like the weird Honeyway motorboat chase. I think it's like heavily implied that Hunter's gone crazy or something. The rocket boards are, as emphasized, extremely dope, or other trendy word. I like the puzzles, like this little dog puzzle, the little adorable puppy, and this one with the growing beans. They're nice and they're pretty well designed, starting you off with a basic task to learn the puzzle, and then giving you more hard puzzles with the stuff you just learned, before closing it all out with a subversion. I always seem to get a little stuck on the final bean one, I swear. The mini-boss naval battle with Bluto is really neat and fun. So was the mini-boss fight against the sleepy Rhinoc lizard. This 2D section with Sheila is cool and all, but it should have focused more on verticality with how high you can jump and how much your horizontal movement sucks. I love the meaty squish of a whacked mole, don't you? Can I interest you in a game of cat hockey? PETA approved. All of the Sparks levels. Oh yeah, you can play as Sparks, and it's awesome. He controls like a top-down gauntlet-style shooter, which you would rather want to be a twin-stick shooter, but it still feels great, especially if you properly utilize the strafing. The levels themselves are pretty good, though I feel like there could have been more to them, but the combat and shooting definitely makes up for it. And the bosses at the end of each of them are pretty fun to gun down too. You only get access to these levels after fighting the world's boss, which, yeah, you can immediately go back, but do you really want to go back after entering a new world? No, I didn't think so. I just found myself doing all of them in succession after beating the final boss, right before going for that 100% comb through, which, yes, like with the unlockable moves in Spyro 2, is a thing again, because, you know, the other characters you gotta free. Anyways, completing one of these will grant Sparks a new ability to help Spyro with: grabbing gems farther away, being able to teleport to levels from a guidebook, gaining an additional hit point. I wish he had another color to him instead of just staying gold like in the future GBA game where he became red. Breaking gem containers, which I kind of liked breaking them myself. Oh, and the godsend dubbed the Gem Finder. Hold down all the shoulder buttons to have Sparks point to the direction of the nearest gem. I'd say that this is probably the best ability, since it's really easy to leave behind or miss some random straggling gem hidden some wall crevice somewhere. It's an unlockable in this game, which is appropriate but kinda strange since, fun fact, you had it from the get-go in Spyro 2. Yeah, that's right, if you hold down all the shoulder buttons in that game, boom, there was the Gem Finder. Mind blown. You are never told that you can do this in the game, only in the manual. Heck, You can even center camera in that game. Like, why? I wish I knew about that. Like, you are never told this. Well, I think. I don't know. Maybe it was in that tutorial, blah, blah, blah. I skipped. That came out of Zoe's gob. I found the gem finder in Spyro 2 out of complete desperation. Standing on this bridge in Idle Springs, having no idea where these last gems were, and just slamming down all the shoulder buttons, hoping it would work, knowing, or I guess now, thinking that doing it wouldn't do anything, but it did! The gem finder is something they implemented in all 3 games in the Reignited trilogy, and while I love that, I don't really like how it works. You just push in the left analog stick to have sparks quickly twirl in the direction, which, while being satisfying to spam and also retains the game's flow, I think it's very cheap and subject to over-reliance. Doing the all shoulders thing will likely have you stop abusing it and make you use it as a last resort rather than just spamming it while you're playing. I don't know. Either way, you get these sparks abilities towards the very end of the game, so their usefulness isn't that prevalent. Well, unless you actually U-turned after defeating a boss, which, as said, why would you? Or even how could you know? Speaking of the bosses, let me talk about the music real quick before I forget and inevitably end up in spoiler territory. It seems like Mr. Copeland decided to switch things up with his entry, swapping out most of that classic Spyro alt-rock infused with cultural flair based on the level theming, and experimented with some straight-up techno and electrical stuff, like, or whatever this highly compressed bass-ripping factory noise is, and even giving us a taste of some old-school hip-hop with some of these drum beats. While I am highly affectionate of that classic Spyro style, and it's still there in many places, I cannot tell a lie. This new direction can undeniably slap hard. Stevie also got some help from this guy named Ryan Beveridge, who was just starting to break into the TV and film score industry. I don't know how much of his new direction was because of him, or if he did the heavy techno stuff and Copeland did the tracks that sounded more like normal Spyro or whatever, but hey, this is a rather different yet still awesome OST, especially the super ominous boss tracks. The sorceress and her goons whip up powerful monsters to ambush you while traveling between worlds, and you get that world's secondary character to help you out in some way. These bosses can be quite challenging, but honestly I don't think they're hard at all. Some would tell me spike hard, which, nah, just charge in circles and you'll be fine. He doesn't even lead his shots like the other bosses do. Unless I sucked so hard in that Spooky Swamp challenge that the challenge rating got knocked way down for this fight somehow. Which it shouldn't. I mean, I played another level before fighting this boss, so. Scorch. Scorch is my favorite. From the arena being a colossal skeleton, to the mechanics being just shooting rockets at him, to the background track just being the best boss track here. I really like the intro cutscene to each of them, adds more insight into what's going on behind the scenes, and show Bianca's progression in her story. I like how in Reignited, they gave the next world's secondary character some speaking lines instead of just being teased in the background. Really nice touch. Now, strangely enough, well, hold up. Big spoiler alert for the rest of Spyro 3, so yeah, skip here. So yeah, the final boss. The final boss does not have an intro cutscene, even though it has like 4 cutscenes after it. All you get is just
time to kick some sorceress butt.
Well, that was humorously poignant, but Spyro, it feels like he needed some kind of personal interaction with a sorceress because this confrontation feels kind of flat. I mean, his interactions with Ripto are always really fun and made the fight feel more personal. And I mean, sure, We get to see a lot of her leading up to this, but heading up to the fight with her, I mean, give us something to latch onto to pay off all that buildup. I don't think Spyro even talked to the sorceress at any point in this game. Man, this boss is harder than I remember. Well, probably because the stationary turrets you have to use at the beginning of this fight are terrible. Fun fact, if you own an early copy, or the PAL version I think, the pretty decent final boss music for this fight is different because of a bug or limited disk space respectively. Sucks for y'all. Despite this track being fitting to the sorceress, Scorch had a better track worthy of a final boss theme. But oh well. And boom, another villain dead, this time for good, as she never reappears in the sequels. You're just gonna let that happen, man? Turns out, there's the super bonus world that you unlock after getting absolutely everything. It's got a few good challenges and a classic Sonic style secret extra true final boss that sucks straight liquid butt to fight, and I hated every second of it. It's like the bird form in the Ripto fight, but like smaller hitbox, and it's the entire thing. What the heck? Still, no, we still don't get any kind of interaction with her. She just appears, and Bianca tells us that she appeared. After killing her for realsies this time, you are then sent off of the series with this slightly ominous yet adorable cutscene. Yeet. I feel like the normal ending cutscene is better, but I guess that's why they put that there, so that more players would be able to see it. And I mean, yeah, it's a great send-off.
It's a sad sight, Sparks. Another noble warrior falls victim to the plague of love. Just look away. Well, I guess we'll have to find the rest of the eggs by ourselves.
Come on, Spyro. Take a little break. Let's watch the show.
Yeet. Bang. Oh crap, how did this video get 50+ minutes long? What the heck did I do? What's this? What? Well, that was Spyro 3, and basically, this game was made with the objective to insert as many different, yet hopefully still good playstyles in an attempt to keep the game fresh, varied, and unboring. I'm sure that's a word. As said, variety is the name of the game here, so they tried every cool sounding idea and concept they could come up with in a timely manner, and if they came up with any ideas that they could have, or probably should have, built the entire game around, well, they were probably just too far in development where restarting the game with a more focused design was just out of the question, and I find that meh. But hey, Spyro 2's formula of themey one-off levels and gameplay modifying challenges was suitable for random ideas for levels and game-altering challenges, and in the end, I believe that they have reached this goal with moderately well success, but honestly, I think things could have been better for like both this game and upcoming ones. So, here's the question. Which of these 3 games is better? Some would say 3 for its large swath of content, having plenty of variety, perfected core gameplay, and the nicest story. Some would say 2 for focusing more on the perfected gameplay, adding elements the first Spyro lacked, all the while not going overboard with the challenges. And some would say 1 for its focused on pure gameplay, feeling the best to explore and having genuine platforming challenge. If you've been paying attention, then well, you probably would already know that I have a bias towards that latter camp. Seriously though, the original Spyro is my favorite video game ever. Not the best game I've played, but the one I hold in highest personal regard. I have a lot of nostalgia for it, and I like its gameplay loop the best out of the whole trilogy. Although I wish it had the better rounded gameplay of the following games, plus the hover and the charge jump. All of these games are good, and I highly recommend them all to everybody. I would recommend getting the original PlayStation versions, but that's just a personal thing. You'll likely be better off getting the Spyro Reignited trilogy that came out a couple years ago. As I mentioned before, I made a video about it around the time it came out, and I mostly focused on the differences between it and the originals, which, now that I've said everything I wanted to say about the originals, well, would now make a lot more sense, so check it out now that you're enlightened. Well, that was the legacy of Spyro the Dragon, but if you know anything about anything, you'd know that the story doesn't end here, and it's going to go straight downhill. By the time the original trilogy was completed, the PS2 and other 6th gen consoles were, well, releasing, which would allow new possibilities and comprehensible 3D graphics you won't need to like half interpret.
Back then it was about I think it was about the number of polygons you could display on screen. That was all the talk, and what was cool is we could make much more complex models. Ratchet, as a character, had more polygons than any of our Spyro levels on their own. That was the big comparison we made, and it was a real eye-opener for most of us because that was a stark demonstration of the leap in processing power that the PlayStation 2 had over the PlayStation 1.
Plenty of places to take Spyro now, but Insomniac just felt done with the series and wanted to explore new ideas with the new possibilities the next generation of gaming tech will allow them. Insomniac would end up creating the Ratchet & Clank series, a crazy cartoony yet gritty sci-fi shooter platformer hybrid that just looks fun and rad as heck to play. Please Sony, just port them to the PS4 store, please, please. So, what happened to Spyro? Did he just become forgotten? Oh no. You see, Insomniac never owned Spyro. They created him, yes, but they were under a publishing contract with Universal, which means that Universal owned the intellectual property. Okay, Sony was the official publisher, but I think the soon-to-be defunct Universal Interactive, which of course was under Universal proper, was some sort of intermediary and ended up with the rights, so I don't really think it counts as a first-party game. Well, maybe yes, but I'm not too sure, because I'm not really sure about the legal stuff and whatever, and also all sorts of names with good money starting to get involved at this point, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. So, when Insomniac decided to move on, Universal wanted more Spyro games to suck money from, they had to go and license it out with different developers, which is exactly what they did, with the results being, well, less than favorable, to put it lightly. In case you're wondering, this is the exact, and I mean the exact, same thing that happened with Crash with Naughty Dog. Yeah, Universal owned both of them, and the original creators moved on after their PS1's run. Crazy. I've finally talked about my favorite games of all time, yay! But now, I'm going to edit this with the 2 other Spyro reviews and make it one big giant vid, my magnum opus, if I never get to make a video game myself. I'm working on a pitch. If you like 3D games, get in contact with me. We can just talk trash over Discord or something. But we ain't just gonna stop it there, oh no. As a high-tier Spyro fan, I have been obligated to play through every Spyro game, and not just the home console releases. I mean, all of them. So, next time, we are going to check out the post-Insomniac Spyro games. What's the tone on those gonna be? Let me give you a hint. It's gonna be hectic. So subscribe if you want to see me suffer through that. Also, please spare a like. I put so much effort into this, and this is just part 1 of a series. I'm TreyGamer58. And until next time, I'll see you next time. So, see ya.